Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Josh, and this is Star Wars Escape Pod and our fifth review of the fifth episode of The Bad Batch, which launched today, May 28th, 2021. Of course, enough things to talk about with this episode, but we have a few other subjects covered on the show with our co-host, Blake. Rangers of the New Republic, the cancellation there, what's going to happen, what happened, stuff like that, as well as could Disney make a character more powerful than the Chosen One? Is that possible? And is it going to happen? Let's get into it with Blake.
Another happy landing.
Welcome back, good sir.
Hello, hello. Good to be here as always.
Always good to have you back. Actually, I need to ask you about something before we get into Bad Batch. You know, the news was going around the internet lately like a wildfire that Rangers of the New Republic was canceled or taken off active production, pre-production, or whatever.
I'll
just
be
want to know your
honest.
thoughts on that.
Okay, because I actually haven't read any articles on it at all. I've only heard that through you. So
Yeah. So this is this massive thing. It's blowing up online. At least, you know, as far as my Google News feed goes, it's everywhere, right? It's everywhere.
Right.
And you know, the last Lightspeed episode that I dropped was exclusively kind of all about that. But when you like hear a headline like that, because of course no details have been given, it's just all
that's
that's
kind
been
of where
said.
I'm at. It's coming in blind.
Yeah. All that's been said is this show has been taken off active production and potentially could be canceled. That's it.
Well, the obvious answer is it comes down to the whole Cara Dune fiasco.
That's what a lot of people are thinking, I think.
I mean,
that's what my thoughts were too. One of the options, at least.
well, I did dip into the rumor mill a bit before this, and there's a lot of talks online that she was supposed to be the main character. And there's reason to believe that within Mandalorian because she's given the badge, she becomes a marshal, and then marshal ranger. It's kind of like Western America, you know, in the cowboy days.
Yeah,
you could see that storyline kind of taking place in the Outer Rim, where she would be like a sheriff or whatever, right?
Right, a ranger, right? Like back in the Old West, the Rangers were a group of law enforcement that would.
They still have them. They're still rangers now, but.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You know, the police down in the States, the system that works, I have no idea. It's so complicated compared to our police system up here in Canada. But I mean, Rangers and you watched that movie, The Lone Ranger, the Disney movie?
I did. Yeah. I got some of the Legos too.
I actually quite enjoyed that one. You know, it was, I remember you got some of the Legos there because it was some of the only cowboy stuff that they had at the time.
They hadn't made cowboy themed Legos since the 90s.
Yeah.
And they haven't made it since Lone Rangers, so I'm glad I got some.
Yeah, you should be. Yeah, it's a rarity. But yeah, it was a good movie. I was actually surprised how graphic it was. You know, for a PG-13 movie.
I'm also surprised they got away with casting Johnny Depp as a native person. Yeah. I mean, I love Johnny Depp in it, but if it was made now, that wouldn't have happened.
No, totally not.
It wasn't even that long ago. Well, it was 2012 or something. Anyway, it's interesting news. And anyone listening out there, you know, be sure to check out the last Lightspeed episode 11 of the Lightspeed sub-series. But yeah, on that topic, that is my thoughts, is that it came down to that. And there's a lot of talks that they were trying to replace Cara Dune with Hera.
Yeah, so that was a rumor that it happened maybe 2 months ago or so. I want to say is that Cara Dune being a character that would no longer show up the rumor was Hera's going to replace her in the show.
Yeah,
and a lot of people were actually quite excited about this.
Yeah, I was too. Like, I like Cara Dune as well, but I think seeing a live action Hera Syndulla would have been pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, it would have been awesome, and I think it would have segued really well out of the Star Wars Squadrons game, because anyone who's played that will know that Hera does show up as a live action looking figure in that game, in the story. She shows up twice and then multiple times through the comm system. And this is, she's a general now at this point and high up in the New Republic / Rebellion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it would have been cool to see, her as a replacement. But then I kind of went down into this thought of my own, thinking like, okay, assuming that it has nothing to do with the casting, characters, whatever else, right? Assuming it has nothing to do with that, is it just possible that there's just too many shows packed into this condensed area that they're trying to build this cinematic conclusion to? Because we've talked about this before, where there's supposed to be this climax of some kind at the very end. It's a movie or a show or whatever,
an end blending kind of thing.
Yeah, the end game of this New Republic era, and or at least maybe a staple point. It could even go further, but Mando, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, those are the 3 shows left in this time period. Rangers was supposed to be the 4th, and now that's gone. But out of the 4 titles, it's easily the weakest link. So my thoughts were like, oh, well, Ahsoka's a fan favorite character. Book of Boba Fett needs no explanation. And Mando season 3, they'll never pull that. So what's the weakest link of the shows is, probably Rangers of the New Republic.
That's fair. But I also think that's the show that would have given them the most freedom to write.
Yeah, that's also a thing that plays into this, because I'm like, it is the weakest title, but there was a lot of opportunity there with that show, because
it's not a known character really. She was a side character who was well loved and had some great story points, but she wasn't a main character.
It could have allowed a lot of good world building as well, and a little more explanation.
Outer Rim, right?
Yeah. For some areas, a little more explanation for how that works with the New Republic's jurisdictions and all that stuff. And
there was a lot of opportunity there to do something kind of new and fresh, but maybe that was the issue, is if she's like a sheriff or like kind of like a Lone Star Ranger or whatever, there's probably not a lot of storylines outside of tracking someone down and getting to them.
Yeah, probably not.
But I assume it was a stepping stone to something else.
I assume it would be too. And this is a Disney Plus series we're talking about. We've seen Disney Plus series run as short as 6 episodes or 7 episodes or something, like with Falcon Winter Soldier. We've seen them go as long as 9 with WandaVision, and Mandalorian with a solid 8. So I mean, they can fluctuate the size of these shows, right?
Yeah.
Even though the title's confirmed, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be 8 or 16 or however long episodes that they want to make it. They could have been like 4, and it could have been a series, right?
A Sherlock style 3 episode.
Yeah, it could have been something like that. I mean, like, heck, we got these 2 useless shows on Disney Plus called Star Wars Biomes and Star Wars Vehicle Fly Through, and what has that done? Anything?
I thought we were going to do a live commentary for those.
Oh, we're gonna do a live commentary. Let me tell you, those things need an upgrade. Those shows need an upgrade for sure. I put this on thinking like, hey, I'm gonna watch the Star Wars version of National Geographic right
That's
now.
what I thought too. I thought it was going to be a take of like,
dude, it's useless.
We're going to go into a biome and we're going to talk about like the circle of life on these planets.
Or and how similar the environment is to even compare it to places on our own planet or something like that, right? Like anything to make it interesting. And it's like, it was just an empty, musicless fly through thing. It looked like the kind of thing that I would see through the viewport, waiting in line for the Star Wars Star Tours ride at Disneyland. Look out the window, you see just vast open Hoth, maybe a shuttle flies by, some walkers on the ground.
Or if they did like a really chill version of like Star Tours, where you just get in the ship and it's just that in front of the ship for the 10 minutes and then you land.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, so Vehicle Fly Through though, and Biomes, like those are shows, not even movies. They're classified as shows, but there's like 1-2 episodes in there. I don't know if they plan on doing more. If they plan on doing more, they really shouldn't, because
I feel like they got poor feedback, so they probably won't. Like,
they just gotta,
I'll tell you what. They are fantastic desk savers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Any of you guys want to screen copy those things and throw them up as a live wallpaper? Like, absolutely.
Or like when your computer goes to sleep and you can get like the patterns or whatever come up and just have that play. Like, that'd be awesome.
See, I even saw a Reddit forum where someone was talking about, where do I get a local copy of this so I can put it on my TV, just have it playing all day.
Just in the background.
Yeah. So like, they have this potential there, but I just don't know why they. It's
not a sit down and watch. It's something that you just have playing, the background or whatever.
I don't think there's anything else like it on Disney Plus. In a bad way. I mean, this is weird, man. Like it's
it was
like
unexpected. That's for sure.
There's no audio, no narration, just nothing. It's just you sit there for 4 minutes and watch snow, trees.
Yeah, I sat down and pretty excited because I watched Bad Batch or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is great. And I put on this. I'm like, put it on for like 5 minutes, like waiting for something to happen.
Yeah,
I think this is all it is.
All right. Well, my initial.
I would say they should have just advertised it more accurately.
Yeah, they should have.
That's really what it comes down to, because it's really still cool. It's just, I think everyone was expecting something else from how it was told.
Well, and these were blindly dropped out of nowhere too. Like these titles came out of left field and was like, oh, we're getting 2 new Star Wars titles, okay, and then all this speculation, and then boom, they dropped, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's nothing. But there's a lot of potential there. And anyway, back to my original point though, they can put on a show of like 2 episodes, and apparently they're okay with that. And apparently they're okay with episodes being 5 minutes long. So Rangers could have been, 4 episodes long, 30 minutes each or something like that. Who knows? Could have been a nice little bridge between the 2 other shows or whatever, wherever they wanted to squeeze it in.
They could have, at this point, they could even do it as maybe the original Clone Wars was, where like 50-minute shorts that just happened in between stuff.
Yeah, something like that. But I mean, there was a lot of potential there. I'm sorry to see the show go, honestly, even though it was very, I don't know.
Well, let's not forget that modern day Lucasfilm doesn't leave everything completely off the table. It always comes back in another form.
Yeah, it does for sure. I mean, we saw that with the Boba Fett movie that was canceled.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up, because that was a rumor for a long time.
Josh Trank was supposed to direct that movie, and then the mess happened with Fantastic Four, and the movie got pulled 2 weeks before Comic-Con or Celebration or whatever it was, and they didn't announce it because of that.
Yeah,
and this is all based on very solid, unofficial confirmations that I've read online across multiple sources. And so if you read enough about it, like that's kind of what went down. And it mainly not because of the failure of the movie 100%. It was also due to vastly disorganized on-set moments, very bad production, all that stuff, bad planning. So, they're like, okay, scrap this project. But, the idea to have something Boba Fett stuck around, and now we're getting a show, and arguably it's going to be done by a way better group of people. I mean,
the setup was pretty cool. Let's be honest. If that movie took place, we wouldn't have got Boba Fett showing up in Mandalorian.
No, yeah, absolutely. And Robert Rodriguez, who filmed or directed the episode that Boba was in, went into it with the expectation thinking this is going to be the only time that we're going to see him, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, so if you watch the Disney gallery of The Mandalorian Season 2 behind the scenes, he actually talks about that. And what was a 3-page fight scene in the script, he turned into a 9-minute moment in the show, because he said, Boba's back. He said, this has got to be
his redeeming moment.
This has got to be the moment that everyone's been wanting for years, right? And he did it in respect for the character, but also in respect for possibly the only time that we would ever get that moment again, right? And so that's what he did. And he filmed like a previs of the whole thing to show Dave with his kids and his action figures and stuff like that. And Dave loved the animatic because he's like, this is the coolest animatic I've ever seen because you were using action figures, Star Wars action figures.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I just picture like stop animation, like moving them with like fishing line.
Yeah, exactly. And it was cool. It was cool to see him talk about it. And, Robert Rodriguez, I'm a big fan of Rodriguez. Like, I've really loved the Spy Kids movies growing up. I know Machete's quite popular with some of the niche crowds out there, but for him to take on Boba Fett and do a very Western-y kind of grizzled old warrior like that, like, I think it's a good fit, and he obviously knows what he's doing with him. So, bring it on, right? Bring it on, Boba Fett.
I agree. Is he going to be involved in directing the Boba Fett series, the Book of Boba Fett at all?
Yeah. He's I believe he's involved with that show.
Nice. Okay. I'm glad because he did a good job. So I'm okay with that.
He did a great job. All right. So, yeah, that kind of wraps up some speculation there about Rangers. I know everyone's been looking forward to it, but I guess, yeah, you're right. It's possible in the future we'll see.
I think it
this
will.
show come back, and I hope it does.
Maybe they decided that they don't have a kids show right now for after they're done Bad Batch, so they're going to make an animated series. Who knows? I mean, how easy would that be? Because if it was animated, they could just do Cara Dune without the original actress, right?
They could. That's actually a great speculation I didn't bring up in the Lightspeed episode. But yeah, that's also a possibility because if you look at all the animated shows, we've got one based in the prequels with Clone Wars. We've got one based in the originals with Rebels. And now we've got one bridging that gap with Bad Batch. Then we've got one in the sequel. Show. Yeah, and we got one in the sequel era now with Resistance, but we don't have any bridging the gap between original and the sequel. So that could be a very good opportunity to make an animated show. And there is Rangers of the New Republic could be turned into an animated series.
And I will say an animated series, if you're going to do a Monster of the Week Scooby-Doo style where you got to track someone down, arrest them, whatever, really well. It would work better as animated with a younger audience than it would.
Judging by the title, absolutely, yeah.
If that's what the plan is,
I'd be okay with that. Honestly. And Hera's obviously easily enough to port back into animation as well. I mean,
I think if they do that, they will go back to Cara Dune though, because the only reason why they pulled her was because of the actress. But if it's animated, that's not a problem.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's not like the actress. It's not like the problems there should ring closely to the character, right? Like it's like it's like, okay, I there should be a moment of separating that professional side from like the in-universe character side of things. Like I would like to see this character again, Yeah,
I agree. It was a very interesting character. It's a shame what happened. So.
It is a shame what happened. Yeah,
I'm disappointed we're not going to see the rest of the story.
Right. Yeah. And, and plus on top of everything, it always sucks when someone loses their job, right? Like it just under any circumstance, the whole thing just sucks. Right. And so I would like to see this character return in some form. And, I think even the fact that they pulled production of the action figures and Lego and everything with that character in it is a little too far. Like, I think that
was weird, to be honest.
It was just a little like, okay, so now the company's giving a cold shoulder to the character that you brought to life. Like, I know, seriously? Like, you know what I mean?
Weird.
It's strange.
It only harms themselves because people would have bought those toys. But
yeah, exactly. And now they're just boosting the scalpers in the black market.
Yeah, that's always the side effect, right? Remember when they said they're gonna ban Leia in the metal bikini? Yeah. And then the metal bikini Leia toys just like sky
high, man. Sky high. Those are $200 a pop now.
Yep. That's always what happens.
Like, and they don't even look that good. I mean,
no, like, just because it's rare, right?
It's also older. Like Hasbro's really improved their production process for these Black Series figures. And I look back at that Leia figure and it's just hideous. Like all this.
Yeah, Gen 1 was rough for sure.
Yeah, it was a little rough, but
it's kind of hard to remember because I think the first time I actually got a close look was at Bosk, and I think that was Gen 2 or 3.
Yeah. They could. Yeah, those older ones they've they've been improved drastically with the newer publishes for sure. All of them, not just the layout, but all the figures. They look so much better these days. But anyway, let's get into some Bad Batch here. We watched episode 5. This is the one called Rampage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it involved the Batch going off pulling a job for they
were trying to find this
Sid.
Yeah, trying to find Sid. I guess
Sid,
this underground person who was working with the Jedi.
Yeah, once upon a time. Yeah.
So to get into it, because we don't really need to explain the episode, so we can just talk about some of the stuff that I thought was pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
So the first thing I noticed was this planet that they find Sid on looked exactly like the planet at the beginning of Mandalorian season 2.
So it looked similar. The one that it's funny that you bring that up because the planet that they're on is Ord Mantel, which has been talked about in numerous comics and books.
Yeah, I recognize the name for sure.
Yeah, so that is that's the show. That's the planet that we find them on in the beginning of this episode. Is the one that they stay on through the length of the whole episode. The only other time that we've seen this planet in a physical form of some kind in the canon has been in the Clone Wars comic book, the Son of Dathomir Clone Wars comic that filled in the missing Darth Maul 4 episodes that go between season 6 and 7. The ones that never got produced.
Yeah, the one when he escapes from Palpatine.
Yeah. So that's Ord Mantel was featured there, and we also have them go into Ord Mantel City, which is specifically where it showed up was in Son of Dathomir issues number 2 and 3.
So what is the city that Mando shows up on when he goes into the arena and there's the 2 Gamorreans fighting?
Actually, that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. Do you remember what episode that was?
It was season 2, episode 1. It's right at the very beginning. I was trying to look it up, but I could not find the planet name. But it looked exactly the same as this planet. At least before
it does. Yeah, it does look pretty scummy and
everything's painted. Because when we see scummy in Star Wars, there's usually not a lot of graffiti.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we're talking about Mando Chapter 9, The Marshal.
Yeah, it's right at the beginning. It's the first planet.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so he meets the gangster Gor Koresh, which was the guy that ended up trying to kill him right away.
Gorkish.
He's an Abyssian. I can't remember, actually. I'm looking it up right now, and it doesn't really say the planet name.
I couldn't find it either. I wonder if it's just unlisted.
It's possible for sure. It's very possible that they just didn't get into where he was. Yeah, because the scene is so quick, right? So and it was also dark, so it's a little hard to see beyond.
That too, yeah.
The one thing that really separates that possible location compared to
Ord Mantel,
where we pick up, compared to Ord Mantel, is the fact that those little creatures are running around in the dark.
I just started thinking about that. So I don't know if those are on Ord Mantel or not, but I guess that's one way to find out.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so Ord Mantel, pretty cool place, and cool to see it in animation finally.
Yeah, it's been talked about a lot, so it's good to actually see it physically.
Yeah, a lot of the role-playing games actually take players to Ord Mantel.
Yeah. So when we actually find Sid, it's Omega that finds her, and the other clones are just totally unaware. Do you think that was just coincidence, or is there like a sixth sense clone moment?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's something going on there, or they just wanted her to senses. Yeah, or they just wanted her to have a little bit of a larger part in this episode.
Yeah, it could be that too.
Yeah, because they gotta try and keep her relevant.
It's funny because it's like I see what you're saying, but it's that balance between trying to keep her busy so she's not useless, and everything's become so coincidental that it could only be the Force.
Honestly, the only show that hasn't featured a Force user character so far is Resistance, and I think he's got like the opposite of the Force. He's got whatever Jar Jar's got.
Yeah,
he's got whatever Jar Jar's got. He's got clumsiness.
Is that the opposite of the Force? That's how it works.
Yeah, there's the Force, and then there's the clumsiness.
He has the clumsy.
He's got the clumsy. It's also a power, dude. It's a power.
I see what you're saying. Like,
you see Jar Jar take down those destroyer droids, like just by accident half the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts, dude. Like it's a straight up gift. Okay, you know that Star Wars miniatures game that I've got all those figures for?
Yeah.
So the Jar Jar one, not only is he rare, they only made one, and he's got an ability on there, a special ability, which I forget what it is, but it's pretty good because if you roll a save of 11 or higher, anyone who shoots at you, as long as it's a shot, can potentially miss him and hit one of the teammates that's adjacent within so many squares and cause up to like 40 damage or something like that.
Oh, wow. Just like crazy.
It's something nuts. It was something that was like, wow, no other like character has this in the game.
11's a pretty low save.
It's like a 50-50 roll right there.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, there's something I was like, yeah, clumsiness, it's a real gift.
Pretty good.
Sometimes
you just need to win the battle is some slapstick.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a little Bombad Gungan in there.
Bombad General. So we need to go to the Zygerrians and rescue the slave child. Yep. Did you notice that this is a Clone Wars show, spin-off show, but they completely remodeled the Zygerrians?
Yeah, they did change the look a little bit, and I kind of wondered why. Yeah, I was wondering why they did that, because the Zygerrians were modeled for season 4 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars.
Which isn't that long ago, as far as Clone Wars.
Yeah, as far as Clone Wars, yeah, and it's. I don't know. It's hard to say, because at this point, Clone Wars season 4, even though we think it's not long ago, to a lot of the viewers of Bad Batch, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, in reality, yes, but I'm
like
saying
2010 or something like that.
Yeah, but within the span of watching like start to finish, it's only like 2 seasons back.
Yeah. It's possible they were just a different subrace, or maybe just a different species on the planet. I don't know, a different type, because like we've seen that with Twi'leks as well. We've seen Twi'leks with the 2 Leku, the 3 Leku, even the 4 Leku or whatever. There's
Senator has 4,
yeah, and then there's like Bib Fortuna, who's got the weird long one that wraps around his neck, and like they're all kind of different looking. So it's possible this could have been just like an offshoot. Yeah,
and their eyes were a lot more cat-like as well.
Yeah. It's kind of like our own planet, like we've got quite a numerous amount of races, and to an alien civilization, they might take a look at, someone from here and then someone from, somewhere in Asia or Africa or wherever, and be like, oh, are they from the same planet? Like,
species.
Yeah. Cause like everyone's got a different look about them. Right. And so it's possible that the Zygerrians might have more than one.
I get what you're saying, but it was different enough that I had to do a double take. I'm like, well, I had to think back. Like, did we see these before? Because they look so different.
Yeah. It's they definitely have a slightly different aesthetic about them for sure. Rainey is the leader of the group in this group that they have to, take back the Moochie from there, because Bad Batch is sent off to grab Moochie, and it ends up being a baby Rancor.
Oh, spoilers!
Yeah. But that
was very surprising.
That was interesting. I liked seeing the baby Rancor.
There's a very tiny Rancor. Like, I'm just trying to think.
Stubby little thing.
Yeah, because to Return of the Jedi, it's like 2 stories tall, like as big as a building.
Yeah, and this one was a lot faster. It was
significantly.
Yeah, it was just like as tall as Wrecker almost, maybe a little taller, but bulky thing. He's basically the size of
kind of a gorilla.
Yeah, like a really big gorilla. Yeah.
Moved like a gorilla too, so there's a connection there.
Yeah.
And the first thing that really stood out to me with the Rancor when he started attacking everyone was that Kinect Xbox game, Rancor Rampage.
Oh,
you remember this?
I remember that. Yeah,
and the episode's called Rampage, so I think this was a little bit of a homage.
It was. I think it was actually. I don't know. If it wasn't, that's just too perfect. But
yeah, I agree. And anyone
Xbox
listening,
Connect, yeah.
You got to get your hands or try this out. Maybe someone, a friend. Is that it's going to be harder to do just because you need the Connect thing.
Yeah, you need to connect.
If you're given the opportunity to play Rancor Rampage, I highly suggest it. You basically just play the Rancor from this episode. You just run through Tatooine and smash buildings and fight stormtroopers.
That's right. You need a 360, you need the Kinect sensor, and you need Star Wars Kinect, the video game. Brand new at the time. It was like $45 or something like that. But
it's a good investment, man. We've had lots of good hours.
A numerous amount of hours with that one. You can pick it up on eBay for like $12 these days. But
yeah,
that's a game that did not go up in value.
The problem with the Kinect games is you need a Kinect, and no one bought them.
That's also I think why they just did not go up in value.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone who bought a Kinect who can use the game
already
owns the game. Yeah.
It's a cool idea though.
It was cool. It was cool. Yeah. All right. So what else you got?
Well, if we want to stick to the Rancor, this is going to be jumping ahead a bit. I'm going to save it. It's probably the best thing to close on. It was the most interesting thing, I thought, so I'll save it.
Yeah.
Something that came up again and has started to become a reoccurring thing, so I'm starting to believe that my original theory in regards to it is true, and that is that Wrecker's head is still bothering him. Because his head got hit in the second episode, I believe. And not every episode, but it seems like every other episode, he kind of holds his head and it hurts or whatever. Actually, was it last episode? I think it was last episode when they crashed.
Yeah, and he keeps on getting hit in the face, too.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, this one's the one before. So it's 2 episodes back on the planet with the electric lizards, dragons.
And it happened in this episode that he held his head.
Yeah, he was holding his head again. They asked him if he's okay, and he was like, it's to bother me or whatever. And so I think that's the chip. He's now struggling with the chip, and that's what my theory was, is they're going to have to use Tech's brain scanner on him when he turns against them because of the chip and remove it on him. And then that will give them an idea to go and save Crosshair. Right.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I guess we'll have to see what comes out of that. But that's good for noticing that for sure. Because he does keep on reaching up there to
rubbing his head,
to the right side or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and not in a subtle way either. He kind of hold, head in the hand, kind of it hurts, not just casually rubbing his scalp.
Yeah.
So I think there's something going on there. I think probably in the next episode or 2, something's gonna happen. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's a good theory for sure.
I'm sticking to it.
We're approaching the end of the episodes that all showed up in the trailer as well. It's worth keeping in mind that, sooner or later we're going to be in open territory where we haven't seen any footage from any episode at all. And the trailer for The Bad Batch was prominently, I think, featuring the first probably between 6 and 8 episodes, footage-wise. So we're soon getting to the point where, we can no longer use the trailer as a
slight
preview for what's going to happen kind of thing. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Did they ever announce how many episodes they're going to do?
Yes, I believe it's 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot, actually, more than I thought they were going to do.
Yeah, it's between 14 and 16 episodes, and there was a official number.
Right. I assume the first one counted as at least 2. They normally do that.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering about that myself because the first one was just super long, and on Disney Plus though, it is one thing.
Right.
And it's not like part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, because Rebels, they did part 1, part 2.
Yeah, Rebels, they split it up, and then on TV, it aired together. But on a streaming service, what they did was they made the first one super long, and then they combined that with the same week with the Friday release for episode 2. So you kind of got 2 back-to-back in a way. And I guess that was their way of doing, like, launching the show with a 2-parter. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, what did you think? What did you think of this finale? Like just the way the episode ended here, with Bib Fortuna showing up. Yeah, I love that when you first see him in the like the hall projector or whatever. Yeah. They do it all like sneaky, just like when you first see Maul and Solo, and you like don't really know who it is, or like Snoke, and they like kind of lead it up to be like this. It kind of feels like it's supposed to be like this new big bad guy. Yeah. And then it's just Bib Fortuna. Yeah. And then he comes and he's not even like a threatening guy at the very end. He just picks up his stuff and leaves. Like, yeah. Oh, there you go. Here. Drops off the payment out of the way. Yeah. I don't know what they were trying to. Yeah. They were trying to add some mystery there, but I don't know. You could clearly tell it was him. And you pointed out that he's already got the double chins. Yeah, like what's up with that? I mean, like in Return of the Jedi, he's like a Slim Jim Twi'lek, right? And then he's really skinny, but I'm starting to wonder if he just has double chins. No, he's in Return of the Jedi. He's just got a really sharp jaw and everything. And then fast forward to the Mandalorian 5 years later, and they added like the 4 extra chins to him, kind of thing, right? There's kind of a chin thing going on. I just pulled up a picture, and he's kind of got this weird like frog thing. Oh yeah, okay, I guess so. Yeah, he's got something there, I guess. But it's like he was fat, but he got the lipo, but the skin hasn't retracted yet. So he's just got folds. If you look at screenshots of him from the Phantom Menace, though, like it's a little. Tighter. It's a little tighter, right? And this shows closer to the Phantom Menace, I think, than it is to. Oh, really? Well, smack dab in between, because this shows right after Revenge of the Sith, right? And there's about 13 years between Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. Sorry. Yeah, 13 years. Yeah. Because there's 10 between episode 1 and 2, and then the Clone Wars is 3 years long. Yeah. And then now Bad Batch, right? And Revenge of the Sith. So, yeah. So this is like, you look up screenshots of Bib Fortuna 13 years ago from Phantom Menace. Return of the Jedi is 23 years away. I find it funny. This is like looking up a celebrity, and you're like, what? They look like 10 years ago. But yeah. Right? It's like, Bib Fortuna. He is a celebrity, man. He's Jabba's right-hand man. That's true. Yeah. And he becomes the new Jabba. Big Fortuna. Yeah, Big Fortuna. Big Fortuna. Okay, anyone listening to that, if you've seen that around, that was coined here. That was coined here by Reed on Star Wars Escape Pod. Such gotta make that into a shirt. I think you tried once. I did. It was a really crappy design. I just sketched it up and got to put it out there for our fans. Big Fortuna. That's right. So, I mean, we had. Sorry. Go ahead. Do you think that with Bib Fortuna picking up the Rancor and it being the time frame between now and Return of the Jedi, that this is the Rancor that Luke kills at Return of the Jedi? I don't think so. It's a good theory. I feel like it is. I don't. You know what? It might be. Let's just look up the name Moochie. I'm sure it's. No, it's not him. It's not him. I don't think the Rancor from Return of the Jedi had a name. Yeah, I well, not in the movie, but in some of the that Rancor was brought up in some of the canon books afterwards because it was the Rancor's name was Patissa.
Okay.
So Patissa, that was referenced in, it was either in one of the comics or in the Aftermath books, because they did have a series of short stories about the trainer or the caveman guy that trained Patissa, that was like off, sorting his life out after his lost pet kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember the story.
Yeah, so this is a different Rancor, but that was a good theory. It also would have had to have grown up pretty fast in 23 years, but
well, that's a long time. I mean, I've seen smaller animals grow larger in that amount of time. Like, look at a giraffe, right?
Yeah. So Malakili was the
That's
human
his name.
male. Yeah, he's actually from Corellia, apparently, who spent most of his childhood living in the slums of the moon Nar Shaddaa. Having an affinity for animals, Malakili was hired as beastmaster of the Hutt circuses and sold into slavery after a creature got loose and killed audience members. Purchased by Jabba the Hutt, Malakili served as a caretaker to the creatures at Jabba's palace on the desert of Tatooine.
Malakili.
Yeah, so he connected very well with Patissa the Rancor, and must be another Rancor. I don't know. Maybe Jabba just invests in a lot of like creatures and monsters and stuff.
I guess so. I mean, I think in Roman days, for example, that was a thing. People, to show their wealth, would have like
tigers and
anything, right? Like anything that's really exotic.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And and it's important to remember all these I guess civilizations or societies like in the Star Wars galaxy. A lot of them are based on our real world historical factions, right? And where that inspiration comes from. So yeah, it's quite possible that was where they were going with that. But
it got me wondering, though, because we find out in this episode that to keep a Rancor docile, you have to challenge it to physical combat and then beat it into submission. How did Malakili do it?
I have no idea, man. He doesn't look like the beast mastering kind of guy physically,
because Malakili and the Rancor were led to believe are really close, because at the end he's crying over the Rancor, right?
Yeah.
In Return of the Jedi. So that led me to believe that they would have the same relationship that we saw with Wrecker and Muchi. Right. This Rancor.
Yeah, like an adolescent kind of relationship there, and then just growing up kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe he's just that skilled at what he does, right? And
maybe. But we know they don't
say have an affinity for connecting with animals. So
yeah, I don't know. I'm curious now because something had to be done, because we know the Rancor doesn't respond well if you use weapons or electro whips or anything.
Maybe Malakili has something like what Ezra's going on. Force power, connecting with the creatures of the galaxy. Maybe Malakili has the potential to use the Force. Malakili midichlorians.
He can.
Malakili midichlorians.
Does everyone is secretly a Jedi?
It's up on the chart.
Well, we saw Anakin do the beast connections. Maybe that's what he does.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It could be. I mean, see, I'm convinced that because here again, the thing is, everyone's got midichlorians in the Star Wars galaxy, right? According to Qui-Gon, life would not exist in the Star Wars galaxy without midichlorians. So my theory about a lot of these characters, like Han Solo, for example, is insistent that it's all luck, or that he gets away with stuff half the time. But I think it's just the Force, like willing it along, right?
That's what it's kind of hinted. And Luke kind of subtly kind of hints at that, I think, just the way he responds to Han later on.
Right. Yeah. And so and the reason why he's such a good pilot, right? Like it could be an affinity for the Force of some kind.
Could be exactly that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it could be that, some people are just gifted, right? Like in our real world, people are just gifted with certain things. It's like, and someone can't always learn what someone else is really good at because they're just not good at it, right? And so it could be one of those things in Star Wars. Maybe because everyone does have midichlorians, maybe everyone's got this kind of touch to something, right? We'll see what happens with Omega there, because that'll be interesting.
Yeah, that was your theory, wasn't it? That she's
I mean, yeah. So force sensitive, at least something, anything like that.
Well, she gets more and more like Ezra all the time.
She does.
Now she's got her own special wrist weapon, wrist bow.
We haven't seen her super jump yet into a ship, so
that's true.
So I'm waiting for that moment, but I don't know. Yeah, Ezra was like, it was very clearly early on and right away in the show that it's like, okay, this guy's got the Force, right? Yeah, and in this show, I'm not so sure. They've very easily alluded that they've kind of suggested it, but also not put it on the table yet. And keep guessing.
Maybe that's a season 2 thing as well, right? So it's like they don't know if they're going to do it yet.
Yeah, I also want to wind down with this question. Is we've hit the 5-episode count now, and we're about a third of the way through the first season. Like, what do you think of the show so far?
I'm enjoying it. I am. I think it's a lot of fun. The last few episodes have felt a little fillery. I kind of want to get back to the Crosshair storyline, if I'm honest, and the Kaminoans.
Right.
But I know they have to kind of do some world building and allow the characters to grow a bit before they can get back into that. Like I said, we're only a third in, so we're going to see more for sure coming up what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I have been enjoying it quite a lot, and especially a lot of that random Easter eggs and stuff that we can kind of pick out. Yeah.
How does it compare to Rebels for you? Because Rebels season 1 is quite rough at times for many people going from Clone Wars onto another animated show. It can be a little bit of a different direction, both artistically, story-wise. It's also geared for a slightly younger audience. The violence isn't the same. The action isn't the same. But the first 5 episodes is kind of like, we're at this point where the first 5 episodes of Rebels, at this point, we already had that episode where the Inquisitor was introduced and they'd already come face to face with the Inquisitor. And
well, you could argue that that's what the bounty hunter is.
Yeah. So like the story comparison of a week to week, everything, it's not arc based, this show either. Right. So this is the closest show to comparing with it. And so like,
yeah, because Rebels wasn't arc based either. It was single episodes.
That's right. Yeah, it was week to week. So like, how does it compare for you when you kind of pit them up against each other? Are you still enjoying this one a lot more, or
compared to Rebels?
Yeah,
I would say yes, just because I'm more interested in the timeline. So it's cool to see what's going on during this early Empire days.
Yeah,
but I do think, and this is kind of what you just touched on, is I think it suffers from the episode to episode stories. I think arcs are always stronger.
Way stronger, yeah. That's what made Clone Wars such a great show.
Exactly.
It was just so much more thorough with the detail of the story. 3 episodes per arc. At this point in the story, we would have had 1 story arc and like almost halfway through another one, right? So
the thing is with Clone Wars, though, is the first season, maybe 2 seasons, there were one-off episodes.
That's true. Yeah, and we never. They went away from that with season 3, but yeah, that and we did have one-shots here and there, but it's tough to say. Maybe by the end of the first season, maybe that's what they'll start doing.
Hopefully,
going forward. Hopefully, yeah, I would hope so. But
yeah, I just feel the quality of story is higher because they have more time to tell it.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, it totally is. And don't get me wrong, the quality of this show is still is peak, right? Like this is got all the same potential that Clone Wars had as a show. It's got the same visual aesthetic and everything like that. Comparatively to those massive budget arcs like the finale of the season 7 of Clone Wars. I mean, I'm trying to compare.
That was an entire season's budget, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Episodes.
I'm trying to compare this more with maybe like the Ahsoka arc that we saw with season 7, a little more adventurous, kind of going out there, seeing new places, smaller group of characters getting into trouble and stuff like that. That's kind of what it feels like to me. But and visually, effects wise, lighting wise, like, you know, everything is feeling really good quality as a show goes.
I agree.
And
I'm liking the characters. I think they are getting
shaping up.
Some depth. I do feel that
Echo's still in the back seat, man. Echo's still in the back seat. I want them to bring him forward and do something more with him, because he's a legend character. He's been around since the beginning of Clone Wars. Like he was in episode 5, I think it was, of Star Wars: The Clone Wars Season 1. It was an episode called Rookies. Yeah. And he was introduced on the Rishi Moon outpost. And
isn't that actually chronologically the first episode?
Chronologically, no, it's not the first episode. It's one of the earlier ones though. For sure. Yeah. I forget where it is in the timeline chronologically of that show, because the Clone Wars chronologically is all messed up, but it's somewhere early up there, and it's a pretty good episode. It's a standout one.
Speaking of that episode, though, whatever happened to Heavy?
He died on Rishi Moon Outpost.
Same time as like Echo got blown up.
No, that was a different episode. Echo was blown up in season 3, and Heavy died when Heavy was around for like 2 episodes. So they had the Clone Cadets training episode where the whole crew was training together. Yeah. And then the Rookies episode where they all get sent to the Rishi Moon, and the only 2 survivors is Fives and Echo. And then we have the invasion of Kamino, where Fives and Echo are promoted because they help defend Kamino to Poca City. Right. And then then later on in the show, they become ARC troopers. They apply to be ARC troopers. Yeah. Yeah. And then Echo disappears, or, you know, gets blown up. Then Fives dies, and then they bring Echo back. So we do have a what happened episode planned to get into Echo as far as a character goes. And I think it would be a good idea to potentially, you know, even wait just another week or 2 to see where they go with the show, just so we're over the 30% mark. And because I'm still holding out hope that they do something interesting with them.
I think it's going to be a season 1 issue, and then he's going to get better into season 2.
Yeah, it's also a possibility. And here's the thing: I would say that they want to keep him in the backseat for a little bit because they're trying to bring Hunter, Wrecker, Tech, and Omega to the front and center. But at the same time, sometimes, as much as I love this show and the characters, it doesn't always feel overly balanced with those new characters. Like sometimes it's like I'm getting a lot of Hunter. Yeah. It's like Hunter's clearly the main guy. Like he's clearly the Rex of this show, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And a secondary characters being the other 3, and then Echo being kind of at the back as a support character almost. So yeah,
I'd say that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
And even just looking at the level of depth each character has, fits exactly what you just explained. Like Hunter at the front, and then Tech and Omega for sure. Omega, slightly ahead. So it'd be Hunter, Omega, and then Tech
and Wrecker, yeah.
Then Wrecker, and then probably Echo. And the fact that Echo was that far back as far as character development and just overall engagement of understanding who he is, I'm not okay with that.
No, I mean, he's an ARC trooper, man. Like, I want to see more of him in action. And
he shouldn't be behind the guy who's supposed to be just the strong guy who has no personality.
Yeah. And they got to replace that stupid arm. Like, I mean, I'm okay with a screwdriver if it's in there, but they got to get something awesome on there, like some sort of like cybernetic arm that has all these parts and moving things, and I don't know, just make him awesome. You know, he's an ARC trooper.
I'm willing to bet he's going to attach a B2 battle droid arm.
That'd be pretty sweet.
I brought up that arm before, but I bet there's going to be a storyline where he ends up putting that on. I think
that'd be like are you talking one that can rotate and like change, or like a permanent cannon?
Well, they have the 2 cannons on the top, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It is like a robot hand with dual blasters.
Right. That would be pretty cool. Yeah. more recently in the Vader comic books, Vader did that to his arm too. He lost his arm. Yeah, he loses his arm in battle, and he very hacky kind of welds a B2 droid arm onto himself. Know that.
Maybe it's pretty awesome because it's been done, but that's pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah. So I keep on bugging you to read that series, but it's
on the list. I just need to get to it. So then does Vader have a saber in one hand? He's like blasting stuff with the other.
Yeah,
that's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, I'm hoping that they do something really cool with Echo. Still holding out hope. Every episode, every week, I'm like, come on, let's bring him up to the front. Let's do it. But last episode he was a bargaining chip. This episode he was the lookout guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like I just come on, just do something better.
Each episode they find a new way to put him in the background.
Yeah. That's too bad.
We gotta start tweeting at Dave Filoni, like hashtag Echo first. I don't know.
Hashtag awesome Echo. I don't know. Make Echo awesome again.
Oh no, not that one.
Okay, a new topic. We've had this posted in our show ideas for a little while. Can Disney make, and will they make, a character more stronger than Darth Vader? Is something like that even possible?
Well, if you go by canon, no, it's not possible because he's the chosen one. But
it's funny because there was a discussion of a discussion like this that came up, on work chat, and someone was inquiring about this and, clearly said it how it is. It's like Anakin got his butt whooped on Mustafar and is clearly not the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy, at the time of his downfall. And
different levels of power comparison though there, right? Because like from the canon side, Anakin is the most powerful Force user of all time purely due to his midichlorian count. So he has the highest potential and capability. But
he never reaches that.
No, he never did. And he was bested by Obi-Wan, but part of that wasn't Obi-Wan's skill. It was Anakin's overconfidence.
Yeah. And, this is exactly what I said too. When I wasn't trying to, it's funny. He was kind of poking a joke at me because I'm kind of the Star Wars guy where I work. And so he was, throwing a bone. He's like, hey, what do you think of this question? Like seeing if he dropped it on the chat 10 minutes before the shift was over, before the day was done. I'm like, dude, it's like 5:50. We all get off at 6 o'clock. Like, looking for an explanation that I can come out with in my rear end in 10 minutes. Like, okay, all right, bring it on. And so I basically went into this huge spiel about, that exactly, he's got the most potential, but never made it. And it was clearly his overconfidence of it even wanting to kill Obi-Wan in the exact same fashion that Obi-Wan killed Maul, right? Like the artistic way, the poetry of him killing his master, the way that his master rose to knight status with, defeating Maul. And, then he gets beat because Obi-Wan knows it's coming. Anakin, I have the high ground. Yeah, he calls him on. He's like, I've got the high ground. This is over. Yeah, and so there's no winning for him, right? And he's a Jedi Master. He's not gonna be wrong if he says that's gonna happen. So anyway, that was first and foremost, I think, like the main thing for me. But it's also, I forgot to bring it up, but when this question was asked, I didn't even go into like the details of Clone Wars, even though we had seen the Clone Wars, but that was kind of my main thing. And then I went into the whole thing about how even though he's not necessarily the most, powerful Jedi,
he wasn't the most well trained, and yes, he wasn't, I guess, the strongest at his total peak, right?
Yeah, he wasn't the strongest at his total peak. He never made it to that potential. But as as a Clone Wars viewer, my thought always goes back to Mortis, thinking what like the father said on Mortis, as to how only the chosen one can actually control the son and the daughter at the same time, right? And that was very apparent that only the chosen one can do that. And so, the chosen one is like this role that only one person ever has, and only Anakin was able to do that. So even though he's not, and also Mortis was like a magnet of the Force, like he was amplifying his abilities. That's what I was going to
bring up.
Right.
Yeah. So that's on Mortis is probably as strong as Anakin could have gotten if he had reached that, like his full potential. Yeah, totally.
And Anakin is destined to be the chosen one to bring balance and all that. But,
one way or another.
Yeah, one way or another. I mean, the story goes that it's someone with all this potential throws that all away because he makes a pact with the devil to save his wife from his nightmares and, starts him down a rabbit hole, which is just downfall, right? Yeah. And so, it's something that even the best of the Jedi could not come back from. And that's how Ahsoka puts it as well. Like when she turns down the opportunity to train Grogu, she said he's too old to train. He already knows attachment and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, here's the reasons why we can't train people with attachments. Like I've seen what it does to the best of us. And that's what she says. And she's referencing Anakin Skywalker, who had this downfall. And, by that time, she's...
Here's the thing. I agree with you entirely. And I think that's exactly why there shouldn't ever be someone more powerful than like Anakin.
Yeah.
But can we trust Disney not to do that?
Here's the thing. As much as I believe that at the moment we're going on a pretty nice straight route with these shows, it's also these type of shows, aside from Ahsoka, these shows are very much avoiding Force users, right?
Yep.
I think when the time comes that they have to bring a Force user back into the fold, they might be portrayed as somebody who has more power than what we've seen before because it's Hollywood. They got to make it interesting, right?
Well, the problem is I think we're going to have the same issues we had with the super weapons.
Yeah. Bigger and better kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is not better.
It's not interesting.
No, it's not interesting.
It's power creep, right? Like any game, you buy an expansion, there's power creep. So
and a lot of people felt that way about Rey. And like, I mean, I don't want to go into a whole rabbit hole about that trilogy, but it was a issue for a lot of people, including me, right?
Yeah, that's why a lot of people thought she was the chosen one because there was a story going around. I think it was based on the original drafts with the wills, where there is no one chosen one, but the chosen one is reincarnated every so often.
Right. Whenever the Force needs balance.
Exactly. Whenever there's great strife. And people then thought, then Rey must be the new chosen one. And the part that also led to that is when in The Force Awakens, when she feels that, when she grabs Anakin's / Luke's lightsaber, she hears all the Jedi in her head.
Yeah.
People thought, it must be because she's like the reincarnated chosen one.
When you also hear Anakin's voice in that mix, who says, "Bring balance to the Force, Rey, as I once did."
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's possible that that's what they were alluding to, that she is kind of the new chosen one, but they never
say that wasn't JJ's original plan, but then Rian Johnson decided to do something else.
If he had a plan, that is. I don't know. Have you been seeing those articles around? He recently responded to a comment about the sequel trilogy and pretty much admitted, like, yeah, I learned the hard way with making stories without going into it with a plan because, clearly it didn't work out very well. I mean, the reviews for episode 9 were pretty bad. We're talking about critic reviews.
Yeah, I still feel it's hard to believe that at the time of writing The Force Awakens, they had no plan at all. I feel like there must have been at least a rough story.
It's the most shocking part about how those movies were made is the planning process was zilch. Like, absolutely zilch. Like, they went into it being like, we're just going to make this one, and then we'll make that one, and then we'll see where it goes from there. And it's like, this is a trilogy. Like, George Lucas sat down and wrote all the outline, at least for all 6, or at the time it was going to be like 9 or 12 chapters.
12 at one point, yeah.
Yeah, 12 at one point. And it's like he once upon a time wrote Clone Wars down on the page, those 3 words, and 40 odd years later, I mean, now we've got a whole animated show and everything with that, and it's like, there's no way that they should have never thrown those drafts away, man. Like those George Lucas outlines, they should have at least stuck somewhat close to them, because at least it was something of a plan, But to go back to this Chosen One thing, I mean, I think as far as Star Wars goes, there might not ever be anyone more powerful than this Chosen One figure, but
that's the thing. It's like in canon, no, there shouldn't be. As it's been told to us, especially from George, there should not be.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be at some point, just because that's what happens.
How do you think that's going to come up then on screen then? Because we're talking about a Force user in general. Do you think it's more likely that that'll happen in the ways of potentially telling a story of a Sith? That there's going to be someone more powerful?
No, I think it's going to be a hero, and it's going to be really boring.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there.
I would rather it be a villain, because that's more interesting. They have to.
I've had my fingers crossed for a Darth Plagueis movie for years now. Like ever since Disney bought this company, I've like wanted a Darth Plagueis movie, and we
all have, man.
It's like
ever since we heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise,
the legend. Ever since we heard the legend. You ever heard the story? Wait, is it? You ever heard the? Yeah, the story, the legend.
It's legend. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. The legend of Darth Plagueis is legendary, and there's nothing that I would like more other than a movie like that. But the book is amazing. The book is amazing.
I think they will at some point, but I don't know if it's going to be in the Phantom Menace era anymore.
Yeah, it's possible they could just like totally change
Old Republic or something, right?
Yeah. I don't know, but then who knows if that'll make any sense at all, because Plagueis was, he lived for a long time because he could rejuvenate himself, and I don't know how long mutants tend to live for naturally anyways, but the book took place over 200 years worth of time or something. Like it was a long
time.
Yeah. And he cycled through like...
Could he heal himself? I thought the only person he couldn't heal was himself.
Yeah. Well, from death.
But he could from regular wounds?
I think he could rejuvenate himself in a way.
Maybe it's small. I
don't know. I totally forget. But
in the books, in the Darth Plagueis book, he gets hurt some way. I can't remember, and he rebuilds himself cybernetically. He's got like a respirator thing, kind of like Darth Malik.
So it says, at least if you just look it up through, if I type in Plagueis powers, all right. And one of his powers was being able to use his new power to heal and even bring back the dead. But he can't bring himself back from the dead, right? Like that was just some, yeah. So I think that's...
How do you do it?
Right, exactly, yeah. So prevent death, create life, heal is kind of in there. And now we've seen actually Force healing in the canon multiple times now with Episode 9 and Mandalorian. So, I mean, I can believe that he would be able to somewhat rejuvenate himself. Because when Ben Solo's healed, even his scars go away. So his whole body gets kind of refreshed a little bit, right? So it's possible that whatever he's doing is able to kind of refresh himself. And I don't know, it's kind of cool to think maybe maybe we'll get a movie like this in the future. But that book was awesome. Master, like just...
Yeah, I agree.
You saw Plagueis' master, then you saw...
the training of Palpatine.
The training of Palpatine and the apprentice that he had before that he kind of fails as an apprentice, and then he uses him as an experiment to do all these, like, obsessed with eternal life. He just uses his other failed apprentice to perform experiments on and stuff. which I thought was really cool. Right. Just so twisted, you know.
Biff.
Yeah, the Bith guy. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
And then it also delved into the Sithari.
Yeah, and that's another thing. It's like because the Sithari have their own, or the Sith have their own prophecy that their own version of the Chosen One is the Sithari. Yeah, and if anyone's read the Book of Sith out there, it's like a journal that's been passed from Sith to Sith. It's a non-canon it's a non-canon in-universe book, which has little comments written in there from Sidious and Plagueis and this and that.
But it is written in Arabic, so you have to translate it as you read it.
It's not. But it's cool though. I've got the Vault edition, comes out of this pyramid thing, and it's pretty sweet. There's little comments in there from all the Sith that you know from the movies, and kind of delved into the Sithari prophecy that one would come and basically
destroy the
galaxy
Jedi.
For themselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in there, Palpatine actually believes that he's the Sithari. He actually like writes that in there. It's like, must be the Sithari kind of thing, because this is my
destiny.
Destiny. Yeah. So,
very
anyways, that's pretty much all the time we got for today. Is there any last things you want to say about this episode, or maybe something you want to speculate on the next episode for Bad Batch?
I'm excited for more storylines where the 4 clone troopers don't get caught and have to be rescued by a Bega for the 6th time.
Yeah, I gotta agree there. It's something. Okay, something I'm looking forward to is just going back to the Crosshair plot, because like you said earlier, like that's just where the interest is. And
for sure.
So far, it's like the episodes, even though filler, I feel like is kind of it can be a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because
it's world building too, right? Like it has important parts. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not filler.
It's not useless.
Yeah,
it's not useless stuff, but it also, in a way, it's like it's not exactly the express lane to tell this story. So
it's a side story for sure.
Yeah, it's a side story, right? Yeah, for sure. And when you're watching a show, it's like that's the kind of thing that it's nice to just like, all right, another episode and boom. But fillers are never standout episodes. Ever. Like they're just those episodes that's like, oh yeah, that happened, and
they can
characters
be used,
made from progress in the characters.
They can be used for cool stuff, for like tying in Legends characters and that sort of stuff, and bring them back into canon. So like there's cool opportunity to let them be used, but they're not relevant to the main story arc.
Right. And the one thing that I personally learned from Clone Wars was, because arguably season 1 and 2 are a lot of filler episodes, but they had so much more relevance later. And it's very possible that with the first season of this show, they could be doing that. Like they could be just building the stage to then have things later on that then have an effect from these previous episodes. And in which later on, if the show, say it got as interesting as Clone Wars did in season 3, and then people just kind of start watching it from that point onwards, kind of thing, there's a lot of context that just gets chopped off and missing, right? So
no, that's fair. I mean, I'm a good example. I keep asking these questions like, what happened to this character? And it's always in the episodes that I skipped. Or I skip because I've watched them once, but I usually skip them when I rewatch.
Yeah, so there's a lot of relevance with some of those, what we would call filler episodes, that then will later have greater consequence to the overall story. So as much as we consider these filler, that's not necessarily used as a bad term. It's more just like, this was just one of those weekly episodes that wasn't a standout, and I'm okay with that as long as we just don't get too many of them. So.
Yeah, especially this early in a show's life, where that could be the difference between season 2 and not. So,
all right, thanks Blake for coming back on the show, and thank you all you guys tuning in. It's always great to have you guys tuning in, sharing the show with your friends. That is a huge help to us, as well as sending us a voicemail or email whatever it is, all listed in the description below. Our SpeakPipe address to send in a voicemail is www.speakpipe.com/Star Wars Escape Pod. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, and our email is swescapepodcast@gmail.com. SW Escape Podcast is kind of our tag if you want to find us in anything. If you guys haven't been sharing the show with a friend, that would be the best way to help us out. We actually don't take any donations as of yet, or we'd love to upgrade the gear, but that's kind of a personal expense of mine. So the best way to help us out in general is just to endorse the show. And if you do post a link to it on your social media account, feel free to just tag us if we're on it. We got the Twitter and the Instagram at SW Escape Podcast. Feel free to tag us in there. That'd be pretty cool to see. We love getting the emails too. If you guys have sent us emails before, you know who you are. And we'd love to hear from you again. What did you think of the latest Bad Batch episode? What do you think of the show so far? We'd love to hear just what other people out there, other Star Wars fans, aside from us, are thinking about this brand new addition to the Star Wars canon. Let us know. We're looking forward to many more What Happened episodes on the show, explaining to you what happened to the likes of Saw Gerrera, Boba Fett, Echo, Thrawn, and many more characters coming soon to you on Star Wars Escape Pod. Look for more sub-series as well going forward. May the Force be with you guys, and we'll see you next time on Star Wars Escape Pod.